Welcome to HBCU Her Voice, a place where we celebrate the powerful voices and stories of remarkable women from historically Black colleges and universities. I'm your host, Chenadra Washington, a proud HBCU graduate myself. I'm thrilled to bring you this platform dedicated to amplifying the voice of our community. We dive into inspiring stories of resilience, success, and the incredible impact these women are making in the world. From trailblazing entrepreneurs to innovative leaders, we bring you the stories that matter, showcasing how HBCU experiences shape paths and fuel passions. We'll explore challenges, victories, and wisdom. Whether you're an HBCU alum, a student, faculty member, supporter, or simply someone who believes in the power of diverse voices, we are so glad to have you. So listen up as we share insights, celebrate achievements, and uplift our community. Together, we can inspire the next generation of leaders and ensure our voices are heard loud and clear. A grand welcome to HBCU Her Voice. Hi, Chenadra Washington here. I am the proud host of HBCU Her Voice. We are back with another phenomenal story. I am here based in the fabulous Houston, Texas, and we are so happy to amplify the voices and stories of women from our tribe, and that is a tribe of historically Black colleges and universities. And we have a fabulous guest on today. I am so excited about this one because I know that she's talking about some things that is near and dear to my heart. So without further ado, we're going to bring on our next guest. She's going to tell us her name, where she's from, and what HBC she's repping. And then she's going to jump right into her story.
All right. So, hi, I'm Asa Coleman, Asa Berchet Coleman. I am from Norfolk, Virginia. I live now in Louisville, Kentucky, by way of Washington, D.C., where I went to Howard University. I also spent 17 years living there. I worked for D.C. Public Schools as a teacher and an administrator. I also worked for D.C. charter schools. So what brought me to Louisville, and part of my story is that I am the executive director and the founder of Coleman Prep, which is an HBCU-inspired private school. Here, we do all things Black. We are very much interested in supporting our culture and making sure our students know who they are as young people so that they can be strong adults. The HBCU piece for us is really about providing that culture, the experience that I had at Howard University, but HBCUs in general, and that type of experience and cultivating that experience and bringing it here at a younger age. Of course, I want all of my students to go to HBCUs when they graduate and matriculate through Coleman Prep. But even if they don't, I feel that what we are providing now gives them a solid foundation. Now, getting here was not easy. Being here is not easy. I believe as a Black woman, having to explain to people that look like me that private school is an option, and that if they can't afford it, then there are other people who are out here who could donate and help us. And in my situation here in Louisville, I am very much constrained by people who are strong opponents of public school, which I am not against public school at all. I believe public school is necessary. I just believe that they can't educate everyone adequately. Public school is not for every student. And a lot of our students are getting left behind and they're slipping through the cracks. And so for us to have this alternative option, I'm constantly trying to find funding to support it. Now, also with Coleman Prep, when I established Coleman Prep, I really moved to Louisville to start a charter school. Coming from DC, felt that would be a very simple way to get this type of education to students who needed it without having to charge a tuition. I moved here and was on my plan to do that. And then COVID happened and, of course, derailed me a bit. But my ex-husband decided to challenge me for custody and won, because at that time I did not have a school. And it was basically said that I came here for no reason. Even the judge wrote in my order that the likelihood that I would be able to do this was pretty slim, essentially. But I did it. And in less than 9 months after he made that statement in my order, saying that my ex-husband had custody of our children, I opened my school. So here we are, going into our 4th school year. And I travel back and forth between DC area and Louisville, Kentucky. And part of my story is a frustration and understanding that I feel as a Black woman, I was not believed. The work that I'm doing now, it just wasn't fathomable that I could do such a thing. And here I am doing it. And, each day I do it for the students that I have in my building. Actually, I'm in my building right now. We have a small camp that we're running. But it's still, like I mentioned before, about fundraising. It's about us getting out there, people knowing who I am, knowing Coleman Prep and understanding why Coleman Prep is so important. My plans to expand and open up Coleman Preps in different cities, because again, this type of education, I believe, is extremely important, just like HBCUs and all the HBCUs that exist, especially Howard University. But, I have love for Norfolk State because I am from Norfolk, Virginia. I have love for Hampton as well. I know I'm not supposed to since I went to Howard, but I do. HBCUs are important, but what we're doing now is kind of trying to mimic that type of environment that's offered there, but give it to our younger students. And so they are strong when they leave these doors.
Okay, Asa. That was some good stuff. I mean, it's so many ways to go with this. But the first thing that really just stuck out, you talked about building this when there was just so many things. Pandemic, you've been challenged for custody, which thank you so much for your vulnerability there, because there are all of these outside pressures when we're building. So I want you to talk about that fight in you, because it's so easy, right? When there's a lot of turbulence, right? To lose sight of the thing. I want you to talk about that fight in you. Where did it come from, and how did you keep cultivating it through so many different kind of stimulations outside of beyond your control, really?
Okay, so I think one part of it was when I originally started this idea, and especially when we were in court, I was trying to find, a building and trying to get in. And part of the reason I couldn't find a building was COVID. Realtors weren't trying to go anywhere, and people didn't want their spaces to be seen because they didn't want that kind of access. So we kept trying to figure it out. But we also had Breonna Taylor's situation here in Louisville. And at the time, I was working on my doctorate at U of L, and I'm sitting in class virtually. And all of my classmates, it's maybe out of 15 of us or 20 of us, 4 of us were Black. And we're going around. A professor is like, this is the day that they decided that there were no charges. They weren't going to press any charges. And the professor's asking us, how is your day? And everyone else is like talking positively. Yeah, I had a great day at work. And everybody Black is just like, I'm heartbroken. I'm in my feelings right now. I don't feel comfortable right now. I feel like this happened. And it was such a disconnect. And I'm like, these people are who are in these classrooms, because my degree is in education. My doctorate is in education leadership. So all the people on that call were educators. And I'm like, these are the people who are in the classroom teaching students. And if you don't understand the severity of this situation, how are you in these classes? What kind of message are you sharing? Like, you don't even get it. Like, you sitting here like, oh, I had a great day. And I'm like, I am trying to hold back tears right now. So it was kind of that. It's understanding that this space needs to exist. Coleman Prep needs to exist. And kind of moving beyond that, feeling like, okay, it has to happen, right? Like, it's not necessarily the way I wanted it, but it has to happen. I have to find the right people, and I'm going to find the right people. And I found the right people to get us where we needed to be. And now I'm still in that fight, right? I'm still like, okay, the right people have to come. And that's caused me and pushed me to like step out of my boundaries, out of my comfort zone, to do things like this, where it's like, I have to get out here so people know that I exist, that Coleman Prep exists. But I think it's at that point knowing that it needed to happen, and now the fight is understanding that we are here and seeing the impact that I'm having on students, but also the impact that's felt when I have to lose a student because a parent can't afford to keep paying, right? I have to still pay people. So understanding the parents who are like, I can't come back this year because so-and-so lost their job and all of these other changes, but then they're coming back to me a few months later saying, I had to put it back in public school, but I can see the change. I can see the negative change. And then families who come from the public school system to me and say, wow, there's a complete difference in my child. My child didn't want to go to school before. Now they can't wait to get out the house to come to school. So that allows me or motivates me to keep going, because I know back then it needed to happen. I have it. And now I see, yeah, it has to continue.
That's beautiful. You like are preaching to the choir right now because I have a 6-year-old. He'll be 7 in a week from today. And we do what's called an unconventional school model. He homeschools with me Monday and Friday. And
Mhm.
then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, he has what's called a learning buddy. So she comes and she does all of his, kind of STEM stuff. They go to the library every week on Wednesdays, and he has kind of his group of friends there. But me having to even advocate to my family that this is the choice that I'm taking for my child
Right.
was really something that I didn't expect to have that challenge. But now they see how he navigates the world at just the age of, nearly 7, and they're just mind is blown. So I understand that completely. So you are hereby welcome to um you hear me, Asa?
I hear you.
You are hereby welcome to bring this thing on down to Houston, Texas, because it is speaking. You're speaking to your target live and in color. You're speaking to your target audience right now.
It's good to know.
No, right now, because it was that thing. And we actually, and this was kind of the right as COVID was kind of coming down off the peak, we actually tried a pre-K program at a public school for approximately 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I had to kind of be whipped by that decision because as I was going to buy these things for public school, I was just burning on the inside. I don't want my baby going in there.
Yeah.
I don't want him doing this.
Yeah.
And sure enough, within that 4 to 5 week period, we had a horrible, horrible experience.
Sorry. Sorry to hear that.
So, and even I said, no, I can't. I said, I don't really care how hard this is going to be. Things are hard, right? We're going to figure this out. Yes, I'm building things. I have a, entire business. There are multiple parts. It was so important for me to build that in him and really have that as a foundation. So I am telling you, you are preaching to the choir right now. I want to ask you this because you talked about the environment. I want to replicate the environment of an HBCU. So I'm product of one too. So there are certain buzzwords that stick out when I think about environment. So I want you to tell me as descriptive as you can, what environment are you trying to create for people who don't understand what that does for people, especially like us?
Okay. So the environment that I'm talking about, one is sense of belonging. Um, when I went to Howard, it was almost a culture shock, truthfully, because I went to public school in Norfolk, but I went to what would be considered the better schools, right? And so I had AP classes, honors classes, and since I had a lot of classes with people who did not look like me, it was only like one or two of us. And when I got to Howard, it was a shock because it was like, oh, okay, all of us are smart and we all look like each other. But I felt after a while, like this is exactly where I belong. I felt very comfortable. I knew I could go sit down and talk to my dean and say, hey, this is what's going on. I could talk to my professors. My professors could get on me and say, you're not doing the best that I think you can, so do better. But having those one-on-one talks, right, and being comfortable. We talk about like the Crown Act and our hair. We don't have to worry about that. One of my teachers towards the end of the school year was doing hair here, braiding their hair. And the parents like, can you do my child's hair? That's okay with me, right? Because this is a space where you are family. You belong here. It's also about culture. It's understanding where we have come from so that we know exactly where we can go and where we should go. Knowing your Black history, knowing American history and understanding that Black history is American history and that there's some loopholes that we were not taught in school, but I am adamant about making sure our kids know. I mean, I can bring any kid in here right now and ask them some questions and they're going to know the answers. I think it's also about understanding self and being proud of who you are. I think too often we are still seeing a lot of stereotypes about our culture. And unfortunately, some are true. Sometimes we are proving them to be true, but there are some that are going under, like the idea that we are very strong people. I feel like that gets missed sometimes. And we're making sure these kids don't miss that. And I got that at Howard. I knew, I thankfully, because of my parents, knew my history before I got there. But it was when I got to Howard that I was basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Empowered to do what I'm doing now. And then back then I always wanted to be a lawyer, right? I didn't have any plans to open a school or any of those things. But I believe because of other people who walk through those doors and other people who walk through other HBCUs in general, I knew that I could do whatever I wanted to do. And it was really up to me. Yeah, I might have to fight a little harder, but if I had the idea, then I could do it. And I believe that culture, that environment, that space at Howard and seeing other people who look like me kind of propelled that.
That is so beautiful. And I wrote a book and I talked about this in my book. And I said, I remember because my high school was inner city. It was everybody looked like me. It was that thing. And then I went to HBCU. So you're talking about for 8 years, I'm immersed. We doing it. I'm immersed in my culture. I'm immersed in my people. I'm going back home, I was in Austin, going to college at Houston Tillotson, but living in Houston. When I go home on the weekend, I'm back in my childhood neighborhood. I'm immersed. You know what I'm saying? So when I had to leave there and be dropped into corporate America, Asa. And I kept on trying to figure out what's wrong. And I was getting the thing done, getting the job done, still had a career where I was moving very quickly, being promoted every year and a half or so, but it was just something that was just not it.
Yep.
It was just something that wasn't it. And I always say, like, my niece is now in the HBCU and things of that nature, going back on the campus, I'm like, you cannot replicate this anywhere. You just cannot replicate this feel. I mean, me going there, even seeing the younger kids there and them being immersed in what they're doing, it just brings me so much pride. So I understand that environment, and that environment is so important to me. And I really create this space so that people know that and know the power that they give as you're navigating beyond those spaces. Because I navigated beyond those spaces as a prideful Black woman in those other spaces. Because I had been there. Unapologetic, I will say that. I am very proud to say that. I want to ask you this. And we hear this often, that children fall through the cracks, especially our kids, with certain things and certain information. What do you think our kids from our community, when you hear fall through the cracks, what are some of those components that you feel are kind of falling? And what angle are you taking from your perspective to kind of feel that?
I think we often hear about behavior. Our Black boys especially their behavior is looked at as being an attribute of special education or some type of disability, whether it's emotionally or developmentally or educationally, right? So you hear that. The behaviors that are exhibited are sometimes too much for most classroom teachers to handle. And, this is, again, what I'm hearing. And, they are sometimes, if they're not getting the academic instruction that's necessary for one grade, and then they're pushed to the next grade, then they're falling behind there. And so I believe all of those things is what kind of shifts the cracks, right? If you're behind and you're constantly being moved forward, then you're never going to get caught up because they're just giving you new information without making sure you have the foundation. If you're constantly pulled out of class because your behavior is too much for the classroom teacher to handle, then you're also missing that engagement. You're missing the learning opportunity there. At Coleman Prep, I'll be honest, we have had some behavior issues, right? But the way that we are able to address them is slightly different. We have smaller class sizes. So one thing is that each of our students is seen. We see our students. We know our students. We know our students' families. And so, kids get to see that engagement. They see their parent here. They know that Miss Coleman or Miss Asa is about to call my mom. And it's like, hold on, Miss Asa is really going to call my mom and going to talk to my mom, right? And my mom likes Miss Asa, right? So hold on, I got to really get myself together. But I think it's also being able to sit back and take the time to understand what's going on and being able to have honest conversations with families, because we've built that relationship to say something's going on today. What happened last night? Oh, okay, that's what happened last night. All right, cool. Now I know how to address this. I know what I should say and maybe not say. Or maybe I do need to pull the student away and just give them a hug and say, hey, we're good today. We're going to move forward. But I have that opportunity. My teachers have that opportunity to learn our students. learn our families and create this space, even among themselves. They've been able to kind of create relationships among themselves. And I say among themselves, meaning among the parents and our students. Our students are very tight knit. We are the trailblazers, and so we're the trailblazer family. So I think the smaller class sizes help. I think, our intentional effort to get to know our families and to get to know our students, and making sure they feel comfortable. They feel like they can talk to us, and being able to look at some of these behaviors and say, okay, today, I'm gonna just let you sit here for a second and get yourself together. And then maybe tomorrow. But after that, now we're going to have to address this behavior and acknowledge that when you do this, you're not in class. And when you're not in class, you're not learning. And so there's a problem here. So what else do we need to do? What steps do we need to take? And then I'm fortunate enough to also have worked on resources. And so if I need counseling, I have access to counselors and therapists who can come in here. I refer people to refer the parents to counseling and say, hey, maybe this person can address this better than we can. And usually they take me up on that offer, and then they do some things outside of the school. But I just feel like it's there's so many ways, but the main thing is that I'm able to kind of take that time, because I have a smaller student body, to really build those relationships, even down to the academic piece. We've had students kind of catch up because we are in a smaller space. We have flexibility with our time. One thing I haven't talked about yet is some of the special programming that we do. So we have art, step, dance, technology, poetry, and there's more to that. But it's the idea of giving them this access point and opportunity at an early age, so that they can hopefully find some type of outlet, find something that they are really interested in, so therefore we can build on it. So, 2 years ago, I had a 3-year-old playing the cello, and now she's 5, still playing the cello, because we introduced her to it at a very early age. So therefore, if she decides to keep up with it, perfect. But at least now she knows it's something, as opposed to like waiting until 5th or 6th grade and saying, hey, I really like this. We're like 5-6 years ahead of the game.
That is so beautiful. And I love that small classroom and intimate feel. Like, people don't know how transform. I mean, kids are, they're a lot just in one. So, you have a classroom of 28. I mean, I had actually considered a charter school before we got to this model here.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to the orientation. It was like a newer one that was opening here in Houston, and it went to orientation. And they just casually tried to slide it in really quickly. Oh, we have 28 to a class, and it could potentially go up to 32. And I said, my Asa, I said, I don't know about all these parents, but I'm here to actually listen. I'm going to listen to the number. So I said, wait a minute. I said, well, 28. And I asked her very frankly, do you guys have aides or whatever? Well, we don't have aides for most of the classrooms. So you think about 28 at that time, he was 4 or 5. 28 of them?
Yeah.
In one class? So that intimate feel makes all the difference, because you can actually start to see what these kids excel in, what
Right.
they're, passionate. You have the actual time to see that, because how are you going to see that with 28 kids? And they build different these days. So you really can't be playing with them like that.
Exactly.
They build different. Now, I wanted to kind of bring this question towards the end, because I find myself still battling, or still kind of, I won't say battling, but still reflecting on this. You mentioned about being a Black woman and not being believed,
Mm-hmm.
and not feeling seen.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been my entire kind of movement since I left corporate in 2021. And it started with the book that I wrote, Seen and Not Heard: The Invisible Impact of Black Women, where I give these statistics and talk about these things. And it's one of those things that I know this platform matters, because we have to start driving and being our own advocates, because we can't wait for someone to tap us on the shoulder and say, hey, I see you, or
Right.
hey, I believe in you. So I want you to talk more about that. I want you to give people some real life tips, because you're doing it, Asa. You're walking in Coleman. You're doing that. And there's so many of us that can't get to that point, because we're waiting for somebody to say, hey, Asa, you're great. Hey, Chenadra, you're great. So I want you to talk to that from a perspective of somebody who's walking the walk of Coleman Academy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough. I'll be so honest and say it's tough, and it's tough because I don't just get hit from white people with that, right? I don't just get hit from men with that. It's women people who look just like me in race and culture and style and complexion and sex and gender, all of those things, right? And so that is very frustrating. Like I mentioned before, I'm here kind of like fighting public school, which I don't feel should be the case. I see a lot of people in this area in our community who are fighting the public school system to make them do what they think they should do, as opposed to just supporting Coleman Prep, right? But I understand that that's the mindset. Education is supposed to be free, and this is what they're supposed to do. Okay, if that's what you feel. I think, having to go through these emotions and feel like I'm not supported as much as I believe I should is problematic. I'm forced to really look at the people who are supporting me, right? Looking at my team of teachers, looking at the community partners that I do have, looking at my students, looking at the families that I'm connected with, and the supporters that I do have, and having to really look back and credit myself, saying, you made these connections. I moved to Louisville, right? I'm not from Louisville. And so, when I do get down, I stop and think about the fact that, I have only been here for 5 years. My 6 years coming up in November-ish, late October. So in 6 years or so, or 5.5 years, I've been able to do this. And so that is the pat on the back that I give myself, because it has been hard work. It has been having to go into rooms and say, look, this is what it is. This is why I'm here. This is what I'm doing. And some people will leave that conversation be like, okay. And some people leave that conversation and don't say anything to me. Okay. And some people, like the other day, I get an email, maybe yesterday, saying like, hey, you know what? As another Black woman, I really wanted to support you in the beginning, but I had some other things going on. I hope you accept my apology. Okay, well, then that's on me, because now at least you've had that opportunity to tell me, right? Because back then I'm sitting here like, you just left me hanging and I don't know why. But having that faith that, I'm doing the work, even down to this court part, right? Having to travel back and forth with my kids and to see my kids, and, my kids being told your mom left you. Those things are emotionally harming and damaging. And I often wonder, did I make the right decision to pursue this? Because the judge gave me the opportunity to come back home and I would have had 50-50, but I'm sitting here like I just started my doctoral program. I feel in my heart that Coleman Prep is about to move. I feel like I'm almost there. If I walk away now, one is going to look like he was right, that I was lying, when I'm sitting here doing as much as I can in a city that I don't know anybody. And also looking at it like, and years come when this is a thing, my children can say, my mom did this. If I had walked away, then I would have given up. And some people, you could have done it in DC. You could have done it in Virginia. Could I? I was here. This is the space where I felt that it needed to be, and I can expand and go wherever. And of course, there's some mistakes that I've made. I should have done more with fundraising on the get-go, on the front side. But I did not want to risk people telling me, oh, no, you don't do this. You're just going to fight the public school system. Because that's kind of what people were saying. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. That's not the answer. We can also create our own thing. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. And so it's that push. Maybe it's a little bit of a Pisces thing, where I'm like, nah, I just got to keep going. I don't know if it's just the Asa thing. Maybe it's a Howard thing. It's a lot of attributes I feel like may have all trickled in and created this drive that I have. But I do think, now I'm starting to be even more confident. My son was here a couple of weeks ago, and he makes this comment to me like, so at some point, are you going to leave this to me? I'm like, really? Like, you would want Coleman Prep? Like, you would want to? He's just like, yeah. And I'm like, this is why. When I sat in that courtroom and they're basically saying, you this isn't going to happen, and the other person is someone who's never finished school, who's never even started school. I'm on my 4th degree, third degree, and I have a certificate in there too. And I'm sitting here like, why am I the one that's not being believed? Even my lawyer, a Black woman at the time, was just kind of like we're just gonna, not say much. And I'm like, what? I'm getting railroaded here. Like, no one's speaking up for me. And then, of course, we're on Zoom, so I couldn't even speak up for myself. I'm sitting here like, what is going on here? And to have to stomach that, knowing I wasn't lying from the beginning. I was working as hard as I could, and I have work to show for it, and there's still more work to be done. But having to just kind of like just step out there on faith, I think that's the main part. And I hope I'm answering the question, because I just kind of get off of my little.
Oh no, that was beautiful. There were so many other nuggets in there, especially about your son. And we have to understand our kids are watching us.
Mm-hmm.
Our kids are watching us. My son now, when he was in school before they let out, they're about to start again. His teacher had called me and said, I don't know why he's writing his name like this on the paper. So I'm like, oh God, what is he writing? And he would write his name. He would say Ryan, and he puts a comma, and he puts CEO. Everything. Listen, Asa, everything he puts his name.
I love it.
And I'm thinking, you get that heart drop moment. You're like, oh Lord, what these folks gonna say to this voice? you that heart drop moment. And she sent the picture of it, and it was just something like, it made me think about that the strides, they matter.
Right.
The showing up, it matters. And that's where that self-belief, because you're going to have to keep that intact. And when you get that confirmation that you see he see that you're building a legacy. He already knows that.
Mm-hmm.
And they are closer. They are like close to the veil than we are when they're children, because they haven't had life slap them in the face yet. They haven't.
Right.
So when they say those things, it is worth something. So Asa, I want you to tell them where they can find you. If you want to drop your social media or your website or whatever it is, so that we can have this information in our podcast when it goes out. We want to make sure we know where to find you.
Okay, cool. All right, so our website is colemanprep.org. So COLEMANPREP.org. So my last name, prep.org. On Facebook and Instagram, we are Coleman Prep. I'm on LinkedIn as Asa B. Coleman, I believe. Asa Berchet Coleman on Facebook, but there are not that many Aces, especially not females. For whatever reason, Asa is a boy name. Till you met me. But yeah, feel free to connect with me. Community partners, we are a 501c3. So of course, if you're in the mood to donate, we will definitely accept that. And you can hopefully get a write-off depending on how you do your taxes. But yeah, we're here. And, if you are interested in having a conversation about bringing Coleman Prep to your area, I'm open to that too. I'm trying to get my team kind of put together for that purpose, because I just wholeheartedly believe in Coleman Prep and what we're doing. And I believe every student, for real, should be coming through Coleman Prep. But, I have to be honest and say I can't handle that all students either. Sometimes this is the right space, and sometimes public school might be better, but I'm always going to advocate for Coleman Prep.
And as you should. So I hope you guys heard that. So wherever you're listening from, she says she can help you build a Coleman Prep in your city. I wish somebody in Houston raised their hand today, okay? She will accept you so I can enroll my son. He will be there. I'm the target. I told Asa that. I want to give Asa just a few more seconds to give her final thoughts. And I'm just telling you, this episode has been amazing. I feel like it was something that I needed, because it makes me feel stronger in my fight and how I choose to educate my son. Mm-hmm. Even with a lot of opposing factors. So Asa, let's go ahead and get your final thoughts.
Okay. So one thing I often say is that, the achievement gap is not an intellectual gap. That quote is literally everywhere I can put it, because it isn't. I think we've been conditioned to believe that. We've been told that about our culture. And usually when you look at the achievement gap, it's us and then everybody else. And that's not necessarily it. We know that we are highly intelligent, we are highly skillful, and have abundant, talents and whatnot. But it is about access and opportunities to resources and all that stuff. And so, that is the reason why Coleman Prep exists, to kind of bridge that part of the gap, getting the access, getting the resources, and getting opportunities to our students and to our families, so that they are able to take all of those things and use them to build a better life. So again, contact us to however you need to. We're here. We are in Louisville, Kentucky. I say that I haven't been living here long, but I finally say it correctly, Louisville, Kentucky. But you can find us on any social media platform. We have, like I said, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads, I believe. But Instagram and Facebook is really where you'll find us and find most of our content. Coleman Prep.
Thank you so much, Asa. This has been a fabulous episode, and we want to bid you a great thank you for taking the time to listen to us. Until then, this is Chenadra Washington, and we are signing off with HBCU Her Voice.